When it comes to keeping a home comfortable, insulation does the heavy lifting, but most people never see it. Insulation is what gives the climate-safe room its strength. It's the layer that holds warmth in during winter and keeps the heat out during summer. Think of it as the lining of a thermos. Without it, any heating or cooling you do just leaks straight out. Unfortunately, many of the homes we work in have little or no insulation. That's a big part of why people struggle to stay warm or cool, no matter how high they turn up the heater or fan. In this section, we'll show how insulation helps create a strong thermal envelope, what materials we use, and why this one upgrade makes such a lasting difference to the way people live and feel in their homes. Felicia, tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
So I am really passionate about energy efficiency, and to me, pivotal to energy efficiency is a solid thermal envelope. So I'm really blessed. I run Enviroflex Insulation. We specialise in retrofit. I was new to the industry about 7 or 8 years ago, and what I saw was just the poor quality of housing, the poor quality of stock, basically, and how insulation hadn't been a priority. And my focus over the last 7 years has been trying to bring in professionalisation to the industry, supporting government initiatives, and working with my team to ensure that they're really skilled and do a great job for all of our customers.
So you're mostly about retrofit?
Absolutely. So the retrofit market in Australia is actually really substantial. We're really good at building tents because we pay so much for our houses. We have this view that they're fit for purpose, but for many they're not, and they're really leaky and need draft proofing and need upgrades in insulation. But also I'd like to talk about how insulation requirements have moved a lot in the 7 years since I've been there. When I started, if you had an R4, so an R4 batt in your ceiling, that was considered quite good.
Yep.
Not so long on, it's the National Construction Code minimum. And we're more looking towards 6s and 7s. So there's about in excess of 600,000 homes in Victoria alone that need either insulation because they have none or require upgrades.
Yeah, so in terms of the ones that we've seen in climate safe rooms,
Yep.
what do we typically start with ceiling insulation, right?
We do, because heat rises, and so what we're all about is stopping the heat from moving in or out, depending on it be winter or summer. So obviously heat rises, so we start with the ceiling. But climate safe rooms, clearly it is as the term suggests. What we want to do is to cocoon a room and actually make it fully a solid thermal envelope. So you would do underfloor, and we would also do the walls, which would mean that you would have a consistent ambient temperature in that room and all of the comfort and the health.
How do you do the underfloor?
I have this amazing team of guys. I have a big, amazing team of guys. So, and the underfloor, our guys will get into cavities of less than 500 deep. So they're quite amazing. Typically we'd like 500, but we do get in under deep. And what the guys do is they drag rolls of polyester underneath. They shimmy on their backs and they staple it up under the joists. So it is like putting Ugg boots on your house, as one of our clients said.
And you mentioned also wall insulation. So how is that done?
So we're one of the few people in Australia who retrofit cavity wall insulation. And we do that so instead of taking the plaster off, which is a really horrendously expensive exercise, we drill holes in between each of the noggins. So for those of you who don't know what the noggins is, if you think of the frame of the house, we're drilling holes in between each cavity. And then we have machines that pump insulation in. And you end up with a fantastic result, which gives you thermal as well as a little bit of acoustic as well.
All right. Yeah. And is that done from the inside or the outside?
We can go either way. So if you know, depending on what you'd prefer, so we can go externally through the mortar, if it's brick or brick veneer, or through the weatherboards, or we can go internally through the plaster.
Right. Okay.
But there's lots of holes, so you just got to think about what you want to paint.
Yes. Yeah, inside or outside.
Exactly. Although mortar's not a problem because that matches obviously.
Oh, okay. So you remortar
Yes.
the holes on the outside.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And with the weatherboards as well?
So that they're actually filled, and you just need to let them leave that to dry, and because they're overfilled to allow for contraction, then it just needs to be sanded back and painted to match whatever you want your new house to look like,
Yes.
your thermally efficient house.
Okay. And in the ceilings, so I mean, I've seen a few ceilings in my time, and so a lot of them are pretty untidy.
Oh,
You know, so there's not just one insulation. There's might be a couple of different kinds, and it might be higgledy-piggledy, and maybe someone's been in there to do some maintenance work and thrown them around.
well, this is where the retrofit business, it's a skill unto itself, as opposed to new build where you're working in, you know, basically a blank canvas. You know, when we're retrofitting a house, you have to work around everything that's in there. So there may be insulation in there. There's more than likely some ducting in there. There might be boxes up there. People store all sorts of stuff up there. But you're right. There's also trades who over time have got up there and have thrown bats around and just not put them back. So we aim to work around all of that. Now, the importance of that is that you don't need too much lack of coverage, for want of a better phrase, too much lack of coverage to really impact the quality of the thermal envelope. So our installers make sure they take the time to actually cut everything in and to give you as best a coverage as they can possibly achieve.
The stuff that's in there's got to be made good first.
Ah, look, it's an interesting thing, and you know, and I disagree with quite a few people on this. So we would typically recommend that if you have insulation in situ, that you leave it there as long as it's not damaged. And that might be water damage or rodent damage, or unless particularly you'd like to have your roof space cleaned out. A lot of people do like to have that done. But the reality is that no matter what you've got in your ceiling, it's doing something.
Yeah.
It might not be super effectual at all, but it's doing something. And to have insulation removed is an expensive process. And the insulation, what is removed, goes to landfill.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, with that in mind, we can even it out and then we can go over the top of it.
Yep.
So
So
that was better result.
basically, you save on insulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you save.
Save on the removals, save the environment in terms of landfill,
Uh-huh.
and you know,
And you still end up
Great,
with a
so-
great result.
absolutely.
What would you say to someone who's never thought about insulation? Why should they care about it?
Do you know, it's a bit sad really, because insulation is hidden. Most people don't actually realize when they have it or they don't have it. So firstly, but the difference that it makes to your quality of living in your home as well as your energy consumption is huge. And if we were to have a look back at, for example, the Healthy Homes program that was run by Sustainability Victoria, on average, by insulating and draft proofing, there was an $800 saving on medical expenses per person, per annum, per home. So immense saving. So people's quality of life really improved.
It's really improved through those two things.
And it's funny though, because people often say to us, how much do I save when I put insulation in? And you know, there's a lot of different models out there. But because at Enviroflex we do so much social housing work, what we find often is that people who couldn't afford to run their heating and cooling units previously, because it was just all going out into the atmosphere, they can now finally have a comfortable home. Their cost might go up slightly, but their quality of life is just vastly improved.
Yeah, right. Okay, so that's why
That's why you do it.
insulation is important.
And it is one of those things too that does need to be checked ongoing, because it's not just cellulose, the old loose fill paper cellulose that deteriorates. Bats compress over time as well. And the important thing when you're trying to get a decent R value, a decent resistance value to heat transference, is that there's air and there's loft.
Yep.
And over time, obviously, that compresses.
Yeah, as it compresses, the thermal benefit reduces.
Absolutely, it does. So really important to get your home looked at. As I said, based on previous standards versus today's standards, but also just looking at the deterioration. And as I said, retrofit wasn't viewed as a big part of the market until we started really focusing on it. And as a result, there's all of these fantastic things that we can do to help people's home be more energy efficient, more comfortable, reduce their carbon emissions, and hopefully improve the health and safety in their home.
By $800 per home per annum.
Oh, per person.
Per person.
So
That's just
mind-blowing, isn't it?
It is mind-blowing. Fantastic. So we've spoken a fair bit about installing insulation,
Yeah.
but what does it take to be an insulation installer at Enviroflex?
Oh, look, it's really exciting. What we've done is we've worked really hard to professionalise the industry. Part of that is ensuring our installers are trained appropriately. Retrofitting is a whole different beast, as I've said, compared to new build, and it's a whole different lot of skills. So there's a lot of training that's available under the ICANS banner, which is basically the Glass Wool Association of Australian Manufacturers, so covering off Fletchers and Bradford. And there's also the Energy Efficiency Council, who've created a certification. Now, certified installers are required for any of the government programs. It basically means that all of the people have been trained not only in the OC health and safety and how to install, but indeed how to actually make sure that people understand what's going on with their insulation and being able to explain it. Part of that is also that we organise a certificate of electrical safety to make sure that your roof is a safe space, not only for our installers to be in, but also for the resident ongoing. And that is so important because time goes on, and you don't know whether the might have been attacking your wiring or what you've inherited from the previous occupants. So all of that is packaged together and is available out of Enviroflex with certified people.
Right. Well, that's amazing. Once insulation is in place, it works quietly in the background 24 hours a day. You won't see it, but you'll feel the difference. Rooms that stay warmer in winter, cooler in summer, and easier to keep at a steady, healthy temperature. It's one of the most powerful ways to strengthen a home's thermal envelope, reduce energy bills, and make everyday life more comfortable, especially for people who've gone without for far too long. When combined with other upgrades, insulation turns a drafty old room into a safe, stable refuge, no matter what the weather's doing outside.